So, should you upgrade to AutoCAD 2026 or not? Well, in this video, I'm going to be showing you the best new features of AutoCAD 2026, and hopefully that will help you to answer that question and help you to make up your mind. All right, so let's jump into it. Well, right off the rip, yes, get the upgrade as soon as possible. Of course, if you can, who doesn't want to have the latest and greatest at all times? After all, there are really no significant downsides to upgrading to the newer version of AutoCAD. I typically upgrade each year as soon as I see the new version pops up. That's me, I'm on the bandwagon. Anyways, the biggest concern about upgrading, however, would be around the topic of backwards compatibility. That means if I did a drawing in AutoCAD 2026, would it work if I were to go back and open that same drawing in, let's say, 2025 or 2024, which is what we refer to as backwards compatibility? The short answer is yes. In most scenarios, you would be able to open your drawing in an earlier or later version of AutoCAD. All right, so, nothing much to worry about there. But that's one of the beauties of working with AutoCAD and DWG file types in general. You have the flexibility of moving between different versions of the software without running into a lot of issues. My advice would be though, just don't go back too far in the past. Just don't go beyond 2020 or somewhere thereabout. I feel like something will break if you go back into the ditch. One of the cool things I like when you install the newer version of AutoCAD is that it allows you to carry over all of your settings from the previous version. So, for example, all of my UI customizations, my palettes and where they were located on the screen, my content libraries, and so on, all of these things are copied over, or you have the option to copy these over. It's almost like nothing changed and I can just keep going about my business. If this is your first time here, my name is Edward. I'm an architectural designer and BIM specialist with over a decade of experience. I've always had a passion for drawing, creating, and bringing ideas to life. I've also been teaching this topic for many years. So if you're interested in learning more about architectural drafting and design, you're in the right place. Thanks for stopping by though. I appreciate it. And if you find this video helpful, please go ahead and smash that like button and drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I'm gonna be a little bit biased here and start with my favorite upgrade, and that has to do with visual style. Visual styles are used to display edges, lighting, and shading in your viewport, particularly when looking at 3D models. You can find a number of visual style presets in the top left corner of the drawing area. These can also be found on the View tab, then Visual Style panel. Here we typically have visual styles such as 2D wireframe, which is what we would use most of the time. However, we also have others like conceptual, hidden, realistic, and shaded that we can use to get other visual effects. I tend to work a lot with 3D models in AutoCAD, which requires me to do a lot of orbiting, spinning the model around, looking at the drawing from various angles, a lot of which can get very heavy, or you could say graphic intensive, depending on the amount of detail I have in my drawing. And so when this happens, the computer begins to lag. I used to think it was my terribly outdated graphics card, but it turns out AutoCAD was the culprit. Normally, I would have to export, or you could say import, my AutoCAD 3D model into other programs like Navisworks or SketchUp to get a smoother navigation experience. But guess what? That's all out the door now, because with the improved engine, AutoCAD can now orbit super silky smooth. When you switch to conceptual, for example, it is now buttery smooth, minus a few glitches here and there. Of course, I'm sure they're still working out some of the kinks. Same for hidden, shaded, and shaded with edges, as well as wireframe. What you want to do is to look for the fast in parentheses at the end to know which one has been updated. Realistic mode has not yet been improved, which is a bummer. Same thing for shades of gray, sketchy, and X-ray. So these are the ones that have yet to receive that upgrade. I do hope that they get some improvement in the next release. So apparently AutoCAD 2026 is much faster. Your drawing files should open 11 times faster than the previous version, and with AutoCAD 2026, the application launches 4 times faster than its predecessor. I don't really have good examples to illustrate how fast drawing files open, but according to the website, when you open a file, instead of running concurrent operations or doing things one after the other, AutoCAD is now running simultaneous operations, which of course would drastically reduce the time it takes to launch the app as well as to open your drawings. So faster opening times mean that you get back some of your time to do what you love and not having to waste time watching, of course, the blue wheel of death, especially on larger files. So hopefully this helps to speed up our workflow. Over the years, AutoCAD has gotten some major upgrades that would streamline collaboration between multiple users, especially on larger projects where you have a team of people working on the same project. So we see Autodesk Docs, which is Autodesk version of Dropbox or OneDrive, being integrated directly into the AutoCAD software, which makes it super convenient for multiple users to access shared content. Of course, in today's day and age, remote work is more common than ever, and so it is important for multiple users to be able to collaborate on the same project regardless of which corner of the planet they reside. So this new feature called Connected Support Files is an extension to the Autodesk Docs component. In other words, if you don't have Autodesk Docs, then you can't really use this feature. And so it allows us to connect supporting files from Autodesk Docs directly into AutoCAD. So things like font styles, plot styles, templates, and a bunch of other things that we typically need to support our drawings. In the past, everyone working on a project would have to configure their AutoCAD profile to the same settings to ensure that they are utilizing the same support files. And of course, this was important in order to ensure consistency across the board. The connected support file feature takes that hassle away by allowing one person to set up the project with all supporting files and everyone else gets to just chill out, relax. It is important to note though that the person who is responsible for setting up the project support files must have administrator access to the project. So to begin, you would open a drawing from the Autodesk Projects tab on the Start screen. Next, you would navigate to the Options dialog box and select the Files tab. At the top here, you'll see Project Aware settings are available. That means that the project has not yet been set up. Before we begin, you will notice that currently all of the supporting file locations are local, pulling from your C drive, as you can see here. What we're trying to do here is to make it so that it is connected to the cloud, which would be Autodesk Docs. So what you're going to do here is to select Setup to begin the process. Now, bear in mind that when you set this up, it is being done for the entire project. Okay, so this would include existing drawings as well as other drawings that will be created in the future. And updates made to the connected support files will automatically sync across all drawings in the project. Also, support files can be managed and updated anywhere, whether you are in the office or in the field. So now that the setup is completed, you will notice that things look a bit different. All of your supporting files will now be connected or linked to the cloud. I would now be able to add a location from Autodesk Docs. Whatever options I select here will become the default option for every other drawing, as well as everyone working on this project. Connected support files are project aware as well. This means that, if you have multiple projects with different settings, these settings will update automatically in AutoCAD based on the project that you're working on. So you'll never have to worry about changing things when you move to different projects. There's a lot more to uncover with this feature. And so what I'll do is to leave some additional resources in the description of this video. But also, if you'd like for me to do a dedicated video on just this topic, then let me know in the comments below. Smart blocks is a great feature that has been around for some time now, and it has gotten even better. You could say it is maturing. It's not there as yet, but it's getting better. And so what it does is it allows you to search an entire drawing, detect repeating elements or patterns. Then it gives you the option to convert those elements into blocks. This is amazing. So let's begin with search and convert. This feature allows you to select a group of elements and then search the entire drawing for similar geometry or pattern. With this release, it also looks for text variation and allows you to convert those into block attributes. This is very helpful for classifying repetitive but variable types of text, such as door numbers or room labels or window tags, so on and so forth. So let's take a look at how this works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the same option there, and this time I'm going to select something with a text. So for example, maybe a window tag, and so maybe let's do this one here. So I'm going to highlight it like that, then I'm going to hit enter, and of course it's going to highlight all of the window tags on this drawing, or most of them, as long as they're closely related in terms of their geometry. Once that happens, now we can proceed to reviewing each of them. We can do so by cycling through with these arrows. Once you're satisfied, then you would click on convert, and of course this would open up your dialog here, where you have some additional things that you can do. So this is where the magic really happens. In the left column here, we have two checkboxes, okay? The first one is to include existing blocks. So if you had some existing blocks in your selection, you can include them, or you can choose to exclude those. Also, the second option here is what I wanted to point out, which is to include text variation. And of course, you can define your attribute tag by clicking this button here. So let's give this a tag. So I'm going to say, I don't know, something like that. Then I'm going to hit OK. And of course, we need to give the block a name. So I'm going to call this window tag. Next, I'm going to use the center of the geometry. Of course, you could pick a different origin for your block, but we're going to be using the option here. So I'm going to leave that checked. And the last thing you want to do, most of all, okay, is to pick a layer that you want these blocks to be on after it is being created. So what I'm going to do is to pick a layer that was designated. So I do have one for tags here, so I'm going to pick that. And lastly, of course, we should have touched on this before, but we're going to be creating a new block. So you want to make sure that that option is what is selected there, and then we can proceed to converting these into blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and do so, and what you'll notice is that each of these are now blocks, but not just your typical blocks. They actually have attributes assigned to them, and you'll notice that different windows will have their specified values inside of those attribute properties. All right, so if we were to go and insert this block again, so let's say we wanted to insert another one of these somewhere, I don't know where, but I'm going to just place it out here. You'll notice now that we have edit attribute window that pops up, and now we can have another window type in here that we can use this tag for. And so this is, to me, a really quick and fast way of creating blocks with attributes, especially if you're working with a drawing that need to quickly convert things into blocks and also include text variations. So let's take a look at detect and convert. That is another smart block feature that was added some years ago, but it also has seen a little bit of improvement. And so I wanted to cover that with you here. So that would be this option right here. Now, once you click on this, it's going to start to scan your drawing and it will detect different repeating elements or repeating patterns in your drawing and will provide those for you to be able to convert those into blocks. So as you can see here, it identified a couple of things. So, you know, we have some doors, we have maybe some windows here, another type of door, it seems. We have some bathroom fixtures and so on and so forth. So what it did there was to pretty much look at the drawing and see what are the things that are looking alike or repeating, and could I convert those into blocks. So this is not new. So let's take, for example, this door. So when you click on it here, it's going to identify 8 doors. If you're satisfied with all of these, you can proceed to converting these to a block by clicking on the convert button here. Also, it is always good to review each of these doors to make sure that you're capturing everything. But from time to time, there might be 1 or 2 things that are missing. And this is where the updated feature comes in. So let's pick something else because I don't think this is a good example. So I'm going to go for maybe this, which would be the windows at the front here. So as you can see here, let me zoom in on this one. You can see that it captured a portion of the window, but not the rest of it. So this is where we now have the ability to edit the primary instance of these objects, okay? And so to edit the primary instance of this window, we would come to our menu at the top here and then click on this little button here. And of course, you have 2 options. Let's pick edit primary first. So we're going to click on edit primary. What it's going to do is it's going to take you to the primary window. And then from there, we can add or remove objects. So to add an object, you can just right click anywhere on your screen and you can just select add. And so I'm going to add this line here. So I'm going to go ahead and select these as well, but you do have the option to remove objects. So if we right click, you can see that those were added, and then I can do a remove. And so let's say I wanted to remove that line. I could do that. Right click. I don't know why I would want to remove those, so I'm going to go ahead and add them back, but I just wanted to show you how that works. And so I'm going to add those back. I'm going to right click again, and then I'm going to say done. And now you can see that all of those changes were updated in all of the other instances of this selection. All right. And so that's awesome. So now we can proceed to converting this into a block. And so, of course, we would proceed just like we did earlier. We would click on convert and it would take us through the same process where we would create a new block. We would give it a name. So, and this time I'm going to pick an origin. Okay, so I could do that. And if I zoom in, I could pick maybe one of these corners as the origin, and then I'll place it on the appropriate layer. So I'm going to place it on the window layer and hit convert. Now, once that happens, then it disappears out of your list here, of course, because it is now a block. Now in our drawing, we have our windows as blocks. Okay, so when you click on one here, you look in the properties, you can see that we have a block definition called window 1. All right, so that is awesome. The Markup Assist feature in AutoCAD is now able to detect markups that were made on Autodesk docs, as well as markups that were done in other software like Adobe Reader or Bluebeam, which is commonly used in the construction industry. Now, this is where the magic happens. As those markups are being updated in the cloud, they will sync back into AutoCAD. So here I have an example of a PDF markup in Autodesk Docs. As you can see here, it already contains some scribblings, or you could say some markups that were done in another software, in particular Bluebeam, and then it was uploaded to Autodesk Docs here. However, we can add further markups as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of markups to this PDF. Now, markups done in Autodesk Docs have to be published in order for them to be visible in AutoCAD. So on each markup, we will select the Publish button to ensure that it shows up in AutoCAD. Now let's go back over to AutoCAD and import these markups. So on the Collaborate tab, we will select Markup Import. Then we will navigate to the PDF location. Now you can see that a new trace has been created and the markups are now visible on the sheet. One cool addition here is that the default name of the trace now contains the name of the PDF and the version number. This is amazing because usually we would have to rename each of these traces, and so that just cuts away all of that effort and gives us some time back. So if you'd like me to do a dedicated video to go deeper into traces and markups using the Markup Assist feature, just let me know in the comments below, all right? A center layer system variable has been added to AutoCAD. This simply means a new command, a new feature, something, something like that. Anyways, this simply means that you can now set a default layer for your center marks as well as your center lines. So let me show you how to do this. So to do this, you can simply type the command center layer in the command line and enter a name for that layer. And of course, once you do that, you just hit enter on the keyboard and that is it, all right? Or if you already have a layer created like I do, what you can do is to go to the Annotate tab, and on the Centerline panel, you can select the drop down here, then set the layer. Once that is done, you can start to add your center lines and center marks with confidence, knowing that they will always be on the appropriate layer. So this is very similar to Dimension Layer or Dim Layer, where we're able to set a default layer for our dimensions. And of course, that is also available for leaders, where you are able to set a default layer for leaders. And so I really like that they added this for Centerline. And so whenever we place any of these elements, they are automatically placed on their appropriate layers. Bingo, love it. Let's talk about Activity Insights. So, Activity Insights is a feature that tracks your drawing activities, including when a drawing was last opened, modified, or saved, and by whom. It also logs other events like plotting, purging, as well as other activities outside of AutoCAD. So for example, if you copy the file or if you renamed it, this thing really captures a lot of things, and it also tells who did it. This thing is really snitching on you. So you got to be careful about what you do, okay? Activity Insights is not new, but it has seen some improvements. It now shows a What's Changed section, which logs all the changes you have made between saves. It also shows a list of changes for specific objects, a workflow breakdown based on command execution, elapsed edit time, file size changes, so on and so forth. And so this insight provides a high-level summary of changes made during each edit session. And so this can help you to know what happened since you last worked on the drawing, and of course it continues wherever you left off. Now the what's changed insight is also tied to the drawing and not to individual users. And so all collaborators on this project and also who worked within this drawing would be able to view the same insight because it is all stored within that drawing, or rather it is all tied to that particular drawing. So with that said, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more insights, tutorials like this, and practical tips on AEC design